Today, we're going to talk about something that touches millions of lives but is so often misunderstood. We're going to dive deep into eating disorders and really get past the surface level stuff to understand what's actually going on.
So let's just start with a big question, one that gets right to the heart of a really common and really dangerous misconception. Is an eating disorder just a lifestyle choice? Something a person decides to do with their diet?
And the answer is a hard no. Not even close. Let's be crystal clear right from the get-go. Eating disorders are not a choice. They are serious, complex, and potentially life-threatening mental health conditions that have a massive impact on a person's entire world.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get a clear definition. Then we'll look at the common types, try to understand the very complex causes, learn how to spot the warning signs, and, most importantly, we'll talk about the path to getting help and recovering. So let's start with the absolute basics. To really get a handle on these conditions, we have to push past the myths and land on a really solid definition.
So, what are we really talking about here? At their very core, eating disorders are all about a major disturbance in someone's eating behaviors and all the thoughts and emotions that go with it. And this isn't just about food. It's this intense preoccupation with weight, with body shape, with control that can just completely derail a person's health, their relationships, and just their ability to live their day-to-day life.
And this right here, this is so important because it just shatters a huge stereotype. You absolutely cannot tell if someone has an eating disorder just by looking at them. These conditions do not discriminate. They can affect anyone, of any size, any gender, any background. Okay, so now that we have a baseline, let's look at some of the different ways these disorders can show up. And while each one has its own unique features, I want you to remember that every single one of them is serious.
This table does a great job of breaking down the differences. So with anorexia nervosa, the engine driving it is this intense, overwhelming fear of gaining weight, which leads to really severe restriction. For bulimia nervosa, it's that vicious cycle of binge eating and then trying to undo it with purging. Binge eating disorder involves those episodes of binging, but without the purging. And it's often followed by this wave of incredible guilt and shame. And then you have ARFD. Now, ARFD is different. It stands for Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. This one isn't about body image or fear of gaining weight. It's a powerful aversion to food itself, maybe because of its texture or smell, or because of a past trauma, like choking.
And no matter the specific type, the consequences can be absolutely devastating. Just to put this in perspective, anorexia has one of the highest mortality rates of any mental illness. All of these disorders can wreak havoc on the body, the heart, the bones, the digestive system. And the mental toll is just immense, deeply connected with anxiety, depression, and a much higher risk of suicide.
So that leads us to the big question, right? Why? Why do these things develop in the first place? Well, the answer is anything but simple. It's like a really complex puzzle with a whole lot of interlocking pieces. And the first thing you have to understand is this. There is no single cause. There's no one thing you can point to and blame. It's just so much more complicated than that.
The key takeaway here is that it's not just one thing. It's how a bunch of different factors interact with each other. You might have a genetic predisposition. Biology, like your specific brain chemistry, can play a role. And then those vulnerabilities can get sort of switched on by psychological factors like anxiety or trauma, or by things in your environment like a ton of stress or being bullied about your weight. It's the combination of all of it that can create a perfect storm.
Okay, knowing the risk factors is one thing, but being able to recognize the warning signs in real life, that's even more important. So let's look at some really practical red flags that might tell you someone is struggling.
The signs often creep in as changes in behavior around food. It might look like someone who is constantly skipping meals or suddenly adopting a super rigid diet. Maybe they start pulling away from friends and social events. Or it could be insisting on making their own food all the time, secretly binge eating, or even becoming obsessed with healthy eating to the point that it's disruptive.
And these behaviors, they often come with physical and emotional signs you can see and hear. You might notice they're constantly criticizing their own weight or obsessively checking their appearance in the mirror. Some physical signs can be more subtle, like calluses on their knuckles or issues with their teeth from vomiting. And emotionally, you might just see this profound sense of guilt or shame connected to their eating.
Recognizing the signs is step one, but the next step, the most crucial one, is moving toward help and recovery. And this is where the story becomes about hope.
I really want you to let this sink in, because if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Recovery is 100% possible. These are treatable conditions. And the science is very clear. The earlier someone gets help, the better their chances are for a full, lasting recovery. Time is so important here.
So if you're worried about someone, how do you even start that conversation? Well, it's all about approaching them with care. Talk to them calmly from a place of, I'm concerned about you, not, you're doing something wrong. Honestly, the best thing you can do is just listen without passing judgment. And this is vital. Avoid all comments about their weight or their appearance, even if you mean it as a compliment. Gently encourage them to seek professional help. And just remember, this is a long journey. Patience and support are everything.
And when someone does get professional help, it's not just one thing. It's really a team approach. It usually involves therapy to work on the underlying thoughts, medical care to make sure the body is safe, and nutrition counseling to help rebuild a healthy relationship with food. And for anyone watching this who might be struggling, please hear me. You are not alone in this. Help is out there.
And speaking of help, here are some incredible organizations that are literally lifesavers. The National Eating Disorders Association, NEDA, SAMHSA's National Helpline. They all have tons of information and can connect you with treatment. And if you or someone you know is in an immediate crisis, the 988 Lifeline is there for you 24/7 by phone or text. Please, don't ever hesitate to make that call.
So I want to leave you with this question to think about. Because understanding these disorders is one thing, but preventing them is a whole other challenge. How can all of us in our own lives start to push back against the diet culture and weight stigma that fuels this problem? How can we help build a world where everyone can feel safe and healthy in their own skin? Thanks for joining me.